Smell the roses. All right, good. Something's wrong here. It does not like this shirt. Hey guys. How y'all doing? Yeah. It's really hard to get this green screen to work out sometimes. I don't know what the thing is. Why is this so fuzzy today? Might be the lighting or something. Oh, I'm super red. Oh, there. That's much more natural. Oh, that's way better. Just comparing to the color of my shirt. I'm usually not good at determining my skin. That's white balance. Still looks horrible though. What is going on here? Good enough. All right, guys. I have the best T-shirt. Here's what I want to talk about today. I put this on just chatting because I don't have the topic from beginning to end. I really want to hear as much feedback from you guys as possible about this subject. Here's something that's really been bothering me for a long time. I recently actually watched a documentary about Gaddafi. He was the former whatever colonel of like Libya. He like led the revolution there and stuff like that. I'm kind of wondering why. I'm wondering if there can be a state of the world where you have both diversity of thought, like very big contrast in opinions and stuff like that, and still have not have this constant struggle of power. I even saw like on Australian news right now, they're talking about like this upcoming. So a lot of people I've heard are talking about this upcoming war between like the United States and China could really happen. Currently they're having a trade war already, and it might even turn into an armed conflict. I'm just trying to think in terms of world superpowers, even within a country itself, though. Like, at the end of the day, what you have happening in the United States, it's just a big power struggle between, let's say, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And people aren't necessarily trying to necessarily find the greatest ideas as much as they are trying to gain power. A lot of people will say whatever it takes to get them elected. I find a lot of candidates seem to be very insincere, and I don't know what's going on with my hair today. All right, we're just going like this. This is so bad. Give that man a comb. What would I want my superpower to be? Extraordinary intelligence. That would be good. I wish I was smart. That would be nice. Okay, I'm gonna go get some water so I'm not playing with my hair the entire stream. Holy moly with this. Anyway, so can you have a diversity of opinion without a power struggle? Here's the conundrum. I'll tell you like a cool way to set this up is that if you, let's say we tried to ban weapons from the world. We made an agreement, an international agreement. No one's going to have nuclear bombs. No one's going to have like military weapons at all. The governments won't have it and the population won't have it. The only reason the population would ever need to have guns, we'll talk about that eventually, Second Amendment rights, it's only because the military of that country has it. And you don't want the military to be able to rule over the population. You need the opposite. You need the population to have control over the military. Apparently there's a big explosion in Beirut. I don't know. Apparently it was explosives. It wasn't just a gas leak. I don't know why Trump is saying that he thought it was an attack. I don't know if that was a misunderstanding between they were storing explosives there. Maybe it was intentional. Who knows? I'll use this cup instead of this bottle. Like that. Here's the problem. If we would make an international agreement... Thank you, Captain Ufamar.
Fry, look to me. This dream seems like you were asking, can you win early game with a heel deck? No offense.
You're saying it's impossible. Well, let's say we got to a point where we heightened communication between nations. And communication is this thing. Right now, if you want to say what age are we living in, we are living in the communication age. I mean, every significant change... It doesn't matter if it's from the internet to social media to the type of devices we're connecting to. The thing they all have in common is communication. Even Twitch and YouTube. It's just like the communication between different places in the world is becoming much more fluid, and between people, even your next door neighbor, becoming a lot easier and a lot more efficient. Forget about when they actually start making new ways of communicating. Apparently Neuralink, that's what Elon Musk is working on, is going to make our brains directly interface with technology, so we're not going to have to read anymore. It's something that they're working on for, there will probably be products like that out within the next 20 years, which is mind-blowing. But if you think about everything that's happened in the last 20 years, it's not even that mind-blowing. Reading is really slow and inefficient. Elon Tusk, you're a Rich and Morty fan. So if you would have... It was a fireworks factory. Apparently there was like actual they're saying there was actual like military grade explosives in the thing that exploded. So let's say we would make, through this heightened communication, agreement between all the nations. We're all going to set down our arms. So we're not going to have any wars anymore. If there's going to be any disputes, we're going to settle them through diplomacy. Maybe some kind of worldwide centralized government, which again, back in the time of communism scare, that was something people were very scared of because that was a very communist ideal. I'm very anti-communist, but I still believe in a worldwide centralized government. absolutely believe in that we're not just making agreements within countries, but we're also making agreements between the countries and really the whole world joining one community. That's definitely one really important aspect for world peace. The question is, can we get rid of weapons? Because if everyone were to get rid of their weapons and then one country decides, hey, I see an opening, I'm going to go and start producing weapons and somehow get away with it, and then they could just take over the world because they're the only ones with weapons. So do countries always, even in peace times, have to have this tremendous military force in order to prevent other countries from doing that? Worldwide government is a horrible idea. Why is that a horrible idea? We already have it. We absolutely already have it. According to the actual theory of communists, it should not be centralized. Yeah. It's called the United Nations. Now, just because the United Nations is a complete failure, that doesn't mean that the concept is a bad idea. It means the execution is bad. It doesn't mean the concept is bad. I disagree with that. I think if you would actually have a point where you would have better communication and people would be understanding even very diverse thoughts, but would be able to understand each other better, the concept of a United Nations would work. It doesn't necessarily mean you have a separate entity that is separate, like the United Nations, from all of the different countries in the world. It doesn't have to be separate at all. It can actually be coming from the countries themselves, and they all have control. It's like this agreement. We have no worldwide conversations. The thing is, you'd have to create those. There's a saying, if you seek peace, then prepare for war. The question is, can we get out of this cycle? Because it just seems like the cycle of mankind. Anytime, it really does, and this isn't just in an inter-country thing. This applies to a lot of areas. This is something I've struggled with on a personal level just in my life. How do you balance being peaceful and being nice and being altruistic, but still having that balance with being powerful? You can't say that being powerful is not important. It is very important. For example, if you need something and you really need something, and you can persuade someone, not coerce them, not point a gun at their head, but you can persuade them into giving that to you, that is a certain power. My point is that if you ever have an absence of power, if there ever is like a void, that then creates the opportunity for power, because then whoever wants can just take up arms and go in there. They say that's what was happening in some of these little weird communities like the Chaz and the Chop, that, you didn't have any police there, and then you'd literally have like basically a gang that was running, it created this void of power since the police weren't allowed in there, and then you'd have a gang was very easily able to take over and enforce their rule of law in a place like that. Thousands of years suggests there's always going to be a conflict. But again, even in humankind, before we had advanced societies, you'd be able to have made the same argument. Imagine you had the first people who were really trying to develop the advanced societies that we have nowadays. And before, it was just every little tiny tribe lived by themselves. It wasn't like a multi-vast, like a whole country lived, and communicated together. People have said, well, for thousands of years, all the tribes have always been fighting, and it's always going to be impossible for that to be in the future. I think that is a flawed premise. Just because something has not been accomplished in the past, if you are able to create a certain technology, in this case, it's going to be communication, that is able to take care of the problems of the past, to actually be able to form that level of communication and that level of agreements and understanding. I don't see why it's impossible at all. I think that's very close-minded, to be honest, to look at the past and say, well, since it hasn't been done yet, so therefore it can't be done in the future. Then you can't actually innovate anything with that mindset. It's a game theory problem. I really would like to hear what you guys are saying. Delanis is saying like this: my conclusion is that you can't have a society of good people. Violent, greedy people always appear and wreck things up. Like, but maybe there's a way to have a measure to prevent that. I'm not saying that everyone is just going to be great and hunky-dory all the time, and there's not going to be anyone who's going to be greedy, but maybe there's measures that can be put into place to prevent that. We can actually suppress that from happening. But isn't that just oppression then? Worldwide oppression? I don't know. Yeah, we're really just getting underway now. On YouTube, you can, if you miss on YouTube, you can actually go back and watch the stream. This is streaming sort of half on YouTube. I should really just put the, I should really take this part off of YouTube though. How do I do this? I think I'm gonna just add a this will be join. There we go. That's weird. I'll probably change that later. Please don't misunderstand me. I don't want what I have described. I want us to have one system control to stop violence, but there will always be ambition to a degree that is willing to harm others. See, I'm not trying to suppress the human emotion of harming others. Look, everyone has this in themselves. I believe we're all born with the capability of peace, of altruism, of forming societies. We also have the ability to fight, to hurt, to oppress. And I think in the human experience, when it comes to just survival and natural selection, both of those things are really necessary. There are certain situations where a person really is beneficial to be altruistic and to get along with society. And then there's going to be some situations, like if people are trying to oppress you and steal from you, so then you have to be powerful and carry a big stick and be able to defend yourself. Humans are more motivated by negative emotions than positive ones. But the thing that would motivate us to create this sort of advanced society would be the fear of war. It's actually beneficial for everyone. So we actually are coming from a negative emotion, so to speak. I would say fear is probably the strongest driving force of people in general, and how they live their lives and how they, form their ideas, make their policies. Welcome, Ratsack. Throw money at Fry. Dude. Buddy Dude is just a troll. Anyway. Don't listen to that man. He doesn't even know. Wow, I just ripped a hole. I have like this carpet protector from this chair that I'm sitting on. Chair map but it's actually ripping a hole in the protector. I'm gonna need a new one. Don't tell him. When I'm talking about a power struggle, I'm talking about the point where it gets to the point of taking weapons and solving issues that way. Is there a way to get rid of armed conflict? Like, I don't mind there being conflict. I'm totally okay with, like, peaceful, non-violent conflict. If we have ideas and we're gathering people together and we're trying to convince them of our side and of their side, and it becomes like a whole fight, in that sense, I'm totally okay with that, because I feel like that is actually very productive. The thing which is very unproductive, I mean, I'm sure there are some armed conflicts which are quite productive, you know what I mean? The Civil War was, produced pretty good results. I really believe, I'm going to make a podcast on this someday, though. I really strongly believe that the Civil War was avoidable. I know some people say, Fry, what do you mean? You want there to still be slavery? No, I think that same amount of effort had been put into communication rather than to war. In the same way you're going to be enlisting people in the military and you're manufacturing weapons. Instead, if you're enlisting people to educate people about slavery, and instead of creating weapons, you create pamphlets and you create books, I really think the conflict not only would have been solved without as much bloodshed, but would have actually been solved better, because when you got rid of slavery, you didn't get rid of racism. If you would have gone that route and invested all those tremendous resources into education, you would have been able to solve racism as well. I'm talking about getting rid of armed conflict. I guess that's the first thing I'm talking about. I mean, a power... You have to really think about what power is. If you are able, if you're a persuasive person, and could be you just have good ideas, you could be a person with horrible ideas and you're just very charismatic, or you're a person with great ideas and you don't have to be that charismatic. Your ideas speak for themselves. Does that give you power? Does having good ideas give you power? If I can persuade a lot of people, let's say in this channel, I can persuade them with using good ideas, does that mean I'm powerful now? What power does it give me? It makes that people are listening to me. I mean, it gives me the ability to communicate to more people, because the better messages I'm saying, they're going to come back and want to hear what I have to say next. So is that an advantage? Sure. Can I run ads on that? Sure. So I guess there's a oh man. I'm sorry. I'm talking really abstract here because this is a really raw subject. Armed conflict is definitely one of the clear examples, but maybe we'll get into some other clear examples of exactly what I'm talking about. I feel like backed up from the camera looks cool. Very charismatic trial. That's why I like having, for these really complicated subjects, I like having one full day where I'm just talking to you guys and hearing your ideas and brainstorming stuff and discussing it. And then the next day I'll go through it from beginning to end in kind of more organized fashion. Gonna get orderly. Tongue twister word. Look at the causes of armed conflicts first. Well, wouldn't it in general, I'll throw you a couple of things. I think I could basically narrow almost every armed conflict into one of a few categories of the motivations for an armed conflict. I would say one is where there is an ideological difference and there is one group of people are trying to impose through force their ideology onto another population. I would say that's one. Number two is when there is the Civil War was a great example. It sounds evil. Oh, you're imposing your morals onto another person. But that is what the Civil War was doing. They were imposing their morality about slavery onto the South, and vice versa. So that's what that armed conflict was. There is another one where there is a struggle for resources, where there's a limited number of resources, let's say, in the world, and then there is a fight over the oil, over the minerals, over the water. It's a very, very common armed struggle in history. Not trying to persuade, but just trying to discover and ponder. I think both things have a time and a place. There's a time to discover. When I think of these ideas, I'm not just telling them off the cuff of my head. Like, if there's an idea that I'm really making into a podcast too, I've thought about it a lot, and I've gone through it, and I've heard other people's opinions about it as well. So the root cause of armed struggles, I would say, is because of an ideological oppression, and I will call it oppression. Oppression sometimes is necessary. Ideological oppression, a struggle for resources. Anyone else have something besides for those two? Does that cover it? The land could be a resource. It's self-serving. A struggle for resources means each of the group believes they want, you can call greed, but they either believe that they just want for themselves, they feel like it's necessary for their survival to have control over a certain resource, or they feel that they are so much better than the people who are controlling that resource, so therefore they More on an ideological level. But it comes down to the same thing. Fry, pour some vodka. It's water. Yeah, guys. Are people a resource? That's interesting. Really, since people have power over populations, unfortunately, I think people are a resource. You know, if you would have two monarchs fighting over a piece of land, they're not just fighting over the land, they're fighting over the population who's going to be producing things, who's going to be paying them taxes. So I would say, technically, people is a resource. Terrain is certainly a resource. Nationalism also causes war? But isn't nationalism, I think that's what you said. You have a C in there. Did you mean, maybe you're saying a completely different word, which I don't know, with a C in it? Can you define that? Learning new words. No. It's showing results for nationalism. Oh, you said the Spanish word for it. So nationalism is a struggle for resources. It's saying we want to take control over our land, over the industry. Typical nationalism is when a foreign country has an industry in one country and they basically take it over. It's a struggle for resources. They want that factory. Yeah. So religion... So economic gain would be resources, territorial is resources, religion would probably be much more ideological oppression, nationalism, revenge. Okay, revenge could be one. I would say a lot of what goes on in Israel and Palestine is a lot of, it's resources, it's ideological, and it's revenge. So okay, revenge. Interesting. I would say revenge is separate from those two. Civil war is usually over either ideology or resources. Revolutionary war. Okay, so what about revolutionary? Well, revolutionary war is an ideological oppression. That's what it is. Again, even a population who is oppressed by a leader, and they say that's the form of government. They say we want to form a different form of government, so we're going to take up arms and fight against them. That is an ideological difference. It's for that and resources. They're taking over the land. It's really both. What caused World War I? Do you know what? I've read a lot and I've looked up a lot. I've watched documentaries about World War II. I don't actually know that much about what started World War I. There was a really good documentary on Netflix about World War II, just kind of going through the timeline. I always had read a whole bunch of individual things, but in terms of setting it up on a timeline, so you know exactly what happened and when, and they showed you the map and exactly where the troops were moving and what the territories were and everything. It was a really good, I could probably recommend it to you guys. What was it called? I'll open my Netflix. Fry, what's your Netflix password? What is... Oh, my browser is dead. I'm going to have to restart my browser. I'm going to kill the chat for a second. My Chrome browser is being kaput right now. I'm going to lose all the chat history until now, so just... If you said anything really smart, say it again. That's all I have to say. This is working better. Oh, that's so much better. Sometimes Chrome just goes crazy. How do you find your history? World War II? It's called World War II in color. I believe this was it. Maybe it's Greatest Events of World War II in color? Yeah, this is it. It's called Greatest Events of World War II in color. There's one that is just World War II in color. Something really smart again. What would happen if everyone had infinite money? Would the world collapse? What would have to be done? Well, I think that's a flaw, because if everyone had infinite money, the money would become useless. I don't think it's... How would you have infinite of anything? Think about it. How could you have infinite, even dollar bills? How could you have infinite? It's always finite. Infinite resources? I don't think the laws of physics allow anything for us to have control over to be infinite. We'd have to control the entire universe. And it's infinite, so we wouldn't be able to do that. The concept of controlling and infinity are actually not compatible. You can't control something that's infinite. Control means that it has to be limited and contained somehow, or else you don't have control over it. Money that's non-existent. Why? What is it? Money that's non-existent, like wired money, like in the bank, is still representing something, and that something cannot be limited. Cannot be limitless. I mean. Okay, back to the Christ thing. Back to the subject matter at hand. Infinite in the sense of economics, that we have more resources than needs. I think that's the case in a lot of places in the world. It depends what you then define as a need. If you want to say a need or a want, I don't know if that's possible to have everyone has everything they want. What about innovation? We're just going to run out of ideas. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Anyone want to sum up the thing for? I'd have to look at that. I'd have to look at that at a different time. I'm not going to start researching World War I right now. But someone want to sum up how the conflict of World War I started in the first place? In economics, need is the same as want. Suppose scarcity societies. Again, it depends what scarcity is, because there's always going to be something which is a commodity. Even if everyone has food, which is basically a state in the United States. Is there anyone in the United States who's starving right now? That's crazy, by the way, compared to a lot of other places in the world and most places in the world throughout history. The fact you would have an entire country with hundreds of millions of people and no one is starving is just like, it's mind-blowing. You know? Okay, so Archduke Ferdinand got killed by a Serbian. So Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Everyone was allied with one of them. So World War I happened. Oh my gosh, you guys are just copy pasting from Wikipedia right now. I'll look into it more. Maybe I'll find a good documentary on World War I. Right now, in the world, humanity produces more food than we consume, but people still die from hunger. First of all, not a lot. Compared to history, very, very few human beings are dying from hunger. It is definitely happening, but that's a matter of transportation. If you would be able to help the economies of the places where people are dying of hunger become much more like the United States, sorry, it's true though, if their economies were more similar to that of the United States, then they would not be dying from hunger. And it's not a limitation of resources or land, or you can grow crops like on cement. IKEA is making these things. It's not a problem. It's an economic problem, not and a political problem, not a resource problem at all. Unless they're people living in like the middle of a desert somewhere. Who knows? I don't know why they're living there. A melon is food and water. Problem solved. My forehead's big. I take that as a compliment. It just means my brain's big. I have quite the noggin, I know. Anyway. Ideological oppression, resources, and vengeance. Does that cover everything? I guess we say World War One was sort of about vengeance. Interesting. Please stop spamming YouTube links. I'm not clicking on them. I'm gonna get a stick bugged. That's the new Rickroll for those of you who are behind in meme culture. Economic reasons. I'll look into it. Death was a justification. You fry your washing machine. Sounds dangerous. Fry, I'm sorry, but Africa and India were carved by European power and resources were taken away from them. So you're saying at that time they had enough resources that they were able to export. Think about it. The land in India and Africa is suitable to support the populations that live there. If you want to blame European countries for the bad situation, both in terms of, you know, culture and politics that exist in those countries, maybe there's a justification for that blame. But at the end of the day, it's not like those lands they're too small to support the population living there. Even though there's overpopulation, let's say in India, there's enough land to support the population, as far as I know. We're we're not really talking about farmer politics right now. Where in Canada do I live? I live in Toronto. Okay, aside for World War One, is it possible to make an agreement? Okay, so let's say you would have a lot of countries. I mean, right now, the world is more or less at peace. People are saying there's, you know, this constant conflict between Russia and China and the United States. But let's say as the communication era progresses, we're able to create more communication between the United States, between Russia and China. So on the one hand, it's making the world more homogenous. I know people don't like that. We should celebrate diversity, but at the end of the day, when I'm talking about homogenous, I'm not necessarily saying in terms of race. I'm talking about in terms of ideas. The world is definitely way more uniform in ideas now than it ever has been in history. And the reason is because of the great communication. So ideas are able to be shared and also adopted. And that's what makes societies so similar to each other. There's a lot of differences, obviously, in different countries, but there is so much similarity now than there was 1,000 years. Just think 1,000 years ago, how much more diverse the world was. Now, there's a lot of trade between countries. And then we have a lot of similar products. We have a lot of similar industries. A lot of exchange of ideas. So it's I want to look up the definition of homogeneous just so I'm not getting it wrong here. It means the same and alike. So it doesn't have to be in terms of race. It's just talking about in terms of ideas. So as the world becomes more homogeneous, I feel like there's going to be a certain point, if we can actually develop our communication as a species even more, where there's going to be, it's going to get more and more similar. If you just go to any country in the world, it's just all, they all look more or less the same. At least, you know, first world countries. The other countries, then we'd obviously have to help them get better economics and politics going. Think the world's going to hell? I have a lot more faith in humanity. I think when things really get bad, people wake up. It's just when things get good that we start complaining about nothing. When there were only two humans, they were thinking more similar than now? Okay. Adam and Eve. Maybe the future of every country will be similar to how China works. It could be. I don't think that the United States, even though I do think that it's probably one of the best games, I don't think it's the end game. So if China proves itself as their system working a lot better, who knows? Maybe those sort of policies will be adopted. I honestly think there's something in I'd have to look into it more. I suspect there are some things though in China's um, politics that make it unsustainable. I think it's too oppressive, and I think when you have an oppressive thing, since people have this natural need to be free, whenever you've had in the past an oppressive society, that the government has a really strong clutch over the population revolts and the government loses control, no matter how tightly they try to clamp it. It always happens. The monarchs in England had a very tight clamp too, and the whole thing imploded for them. You're from Argentina. Consider living in the country. Consider Canada and a ton of places on top of the U.S. Okay, why is that? I live in Canada and I'm from the U.S. I think a lot, for example, Canadian culture, it's very, very similar to United States culture. There's differences, but like, the Canada has followed the United States over the last 300 years very, very much. USA is not a free country. They'll tell you to do just not as much as in China. I'm not saying you should have a free country. I believe in law and order. Whenever you have law and order, it means you don't have complete freedom. You should have law and order to protect people's rights and liberties. If anyone's trying to infringe on another person's freedom, you stop them. That oppression should exist. Canada's much better for your PhD. Why? Schools? You have better options here. Right, the freedom to murder. Murder has never been legal in the United States. The United States doesn't have free healthcare, but that's not freedom. Free healthcare and freedom are very different things. Free healthcare is a lack of freedom, actually. Because you're forcing some people to pay for other people's healthcare. If no one's paying for each other's healthcare, that's more freedom, not less. Quality of living is better in Canada. Depends where. Toronto is hella expensive. It's really hard to say it's better in Canada than the United States because Canada has a lot of very different places. The United States also has a lot of different places. Each city in the United States, every town is like a completely different thing. Very, very different. Moving to Mars. Should we purge? I don't think it's a good idea. It sets a pretty bad precedent. All right, so you get. We're gonna wrap this up maybe in another 10 minutes or so. I'm gonna get working on that next highlight video. I gotta jump into that a little bit. America's the only country with absolute freedom of speech. What about Canada? Is anything illegal to say in Canada? I should stream me doing the highlight video editing. Ideological differences is hard to fight. I think the way you can solve the ideology problem is if we agree to be tolerant of ideologies which we hate. And again, the last video I put on the Deep Fried channel definitely covered that. Is that if we can communicate this message that as sure of just as sure as you are of yourself, there's always going to be someone else who's just as sure. So we shouldn't be. We're agreeing that even if you're sure and even if you have a certain amount of power, you're not going to force other people to assume your ideology. You'll persuade them. We're going to use persuasion, which is really a really good tool in order to get other people to your side, but not using coercion, which is through force and threats of violence. You should have fans send clips. Some people do. Too Many Toasters does. I'm going to include his eventually in the highlight comps. In the highlight video, I'm also going to make an application for a video editor. I'm going to actually probably look for a video editor for these talks, too. Giga file. How you doing? We love you, Fry. I agree with what you're saying. He's saying that you shouldn't have the federal government be in charge of everything. It should be in charge of some things, but a lot of the local government should be handling a lot more of the detail-sensitive issues. And I completely agree with you. What I'm saying about the whole world having one government just means that we're having clear agreements. We're on board with very clear agreements that no matter what, we are not going to change these agreements unless we all agree to. That's what I mean by centralized government. I don't mean that there's going to be the UN is going to be making laws down to the details for every country and deciding what the taxes are going to be and stuff like that. That's ridiculous. If people want to send me highlights, though, and they're really solid, I can't guarantee I'm going to put them in. They got to be a really solid highlight. I don't think there's a lot of people who record PvZ Heroes. That's the reason why I haven't really looked for that. But if anyone wants to send me highlights and they're just amazing, go ahead. I'll put them in the YouTube in the comps. Free speech isn't even close to real in Canada? Can you tell me any laws that are against free speech in Canada? As far as I'm concerned, there's complete freedom of speech here. I know there was this thing about gender pronouns. I don't know if that was that really a law, though? I wonder if it probably did get enacted into law. Is it simply referring to people, or it's only on legal documents? Is it illegal to misgender someone in Canada? This was the thing with Jordan Peterson. The answer is no. You will not be sent to jail or fined for misgendering someone. Here's what bill now law means. There's a bill, C-16, this was the one. You can instigate a complaint for discrimination or harassment. Pronouns will not send you to jail. So what is the thing here? Instigate a complaint for discrimination or harassment. Using the wrong pronouns repeatedly after being made. So this is a harassment law. I think in the United States you have this too. Like, if you call a person, thank you, CrossFit, 41 months. Whoa! Jeez. Thank you so much. So in the United States you have that too. If you have freedom of speech, but if you go up to someone in the street and you start just yelling swear words at them and they say go away from me and you just keep following them and they cover their ears and you try to yell louder, so you can get arrested then for harassment. But that's not because of the speech, it's because of you're invading, that you're hurting the person basically. Well, it's no different. It's a harassment thing. It's an aggression. It's the aggression, I guess. That's the crime, not the speech. So that would be the same thing. If you go to let's say someone who's a trans man, and you keep saying she, everyone says, oh, isn't she pretty? And they keep saying she. So you're right. You're misgendering. The misgendering is not the crime. The thing, it would be anything. You could just go around pointing at the person saying they're an idiot. It could also be a harassment charge. Comedians get fined in Canada? That's like, they used to be in the United States. I mean, that was the case, like, not even that long ago. We're talking like 70 years ago. Can comedians get fined in Ontario? He pays $35,000? What is this? This is in Quebec. Quebec's whatever. I'm gonna generalize. Someone made a joke about a disabled kid, and he was ordered to pay a $35,000 fine. Two of the three judges ruled Mike Ward's comments regarding Gabriel were not justifiable in a society where freedom of expression is valued. Or was originally... Wait, I need to look into this. What was the joke? So he called a disabled kid a bad singer. He said he was terminally ill. And Gabriel not passing away meant that his Make-A-Wish was invalid? Gabriel is not actually terminally ill, as Gabriel's genetic disease does not generally have an effect on lifespan. He was also not a Make-A-Wish kid. His word was embellishing the story for the sake of the joke. Quebec Human Rights Tribunal ruled that the joke discriminated against Gabriel and his parents, ordered Ward to pay damages for making discriminatory comments regarding Jeremy Gabriel, infringing on his rights to equality. Yeah, that's really messed up. So that's horrible. But that's in Quebec. What about in Ontario? I'm seeing all these things about this is in Quebec. That's nuts. Is that Canadian law, though? That's crazy how he got fined for a joke. $42,000 in damages. Ridiculous. You're not damaging someone by saying something. And you're allowed to. You're allowed to damage something. Then you should pay damages to the president. Every time you lie to anything about Donald Trump, you should be able to sue you for damages. If you're a rich man. You would be a rich man. What do you think about Karens? We can talk about Karens. That's actually a really good one. I like taking the meme subjects and actually turning them to something meaningful. So I'm going to write that one down. We have to do cancel culture. I really want to do cancel culture now. For some reason, this power thing's on my mind. Karens. I'm putting that at the very top of my list because we should do it soon. I'm going to talk about, well, Karens, to make a long story short, a Karen on a psychological level is someone who, I think it's just someone who feels very entitled. So maybe we can make an entitlement podcast, explain when it's good, when it's bad to feel entitled. Thank you so much for...
That's the first birthday message I send, so hey.
Thank you, Jetamindfire. Birthday message. Birthday. Thank you so much. Where's my Twitch alerts? Oh, here they are. There. Sorry. Caught it fading out. How do we remove Karens from society? Maybe by teaching people about it. How disgusting it's two things. First of all, why feeling entitlement for oneself could be bad, feeling too entitled. But second of all, the way other people perceive entitlements and how probably just by calling them Karens. Bob wishes you well. Hello, Afro. Cancel culture directly ties into hate speech. That's interesting. You're saying that these two topics are related. That's crazy how discriminatory comments can make you pay damages. I want to talk about discrimination, laws against discrimination. I'm not really sure how that works in the United States, but are you allowed to reject someone? Let's say you reject someone from a job based on their race, for example. Is that illegal? Can you get like fined for that? Let's say you literally say explicitly, I'm not hiring anyone. I'm only accepting white applicants. It's extremely illegal? That sounds really interesting to me, to be honest. I don't want to come on the side against civil rights. I feel like we should definitely be persuading people how stupid that is, but that's tough because if a person doesn't want to, just on a moral level, if a person doesn't want to hire someone of a different race, let's say they're wrong, it can be totally stupid, but people are allowed to do stupid things. How could you make it illegal to do something dumb? It's a hot topic right now. We'll talk about affirmative action for sure. A business can be shut down. Like, there's also this other topic. Let's say you have a Catholic who owns a bakery, and there is a gay couple come to him and asks him to cater their wedding, and he says, "No, I don't believe in that. It's against my religion." There's some people think you should be able to force the baker to cater their wedding, or else he's going to get a fine. Inciting hatred? If you can't incite hatred, you can't say anything bad about the prime minister. You're inciting hatred.
We need a leap.
I am a god. Worldwide peace for all.
Thank you, buddy dude man guy, aka God. Race, religion, age, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity. Why though? That doesn't make sense, because what you're doing is that's forced labor. If you say you have to cater to a gay wedding, the person doesn't want to, you're literally forcing it's the government forcing labor. I just don't understand. Now, we can try to educate the person to say, hey, maybe you should be more tolerant, but to force him, it just seems really weird to me. The baker doesn't have to? So why if the baker doesn't have to cater at a gay wedding, why does a business owner have to hire someone who's, let's say, who's gay? Same thing. He says, I don't want to, I don't, it just bothers me that people, I'm going to hire whoever I want to hire. Why would that be illegal? I'm not saying it's the right thing. Don't get me wrong. Not saying it's the right thing. I think it's really, really dumb. I think the discrimination is bad. I think it's going to hurt his business, because he's going to have the opportunity to have someone very highly qualified. And now he's limiting his options. The more options you have of who to hire, the better you're at, typically. These are specific laws, and ironically, only over age 40 is protected. Let's say a person says, I want to have a young, hip advisor. You can do whatever you want. If you're hiring someone, you're paying them your money for them to come and show up to work. Why can't I just discriminate however I want? Legally. Why can't legally a person discriminate however they want? It just seems really wrong, because if you don't, again, if you're forcing someone to hire someone they don't want to hire, you're forcing them to pay someone else money. It's just like, it just seems like armed burglary to me. Because discrimination hurts the economy as a whole. It's going to hurt that person's economy. Listen, if a person only wants to hire very limited people, it's not going to hurt his economy. I mean, it will hurt his economy. It's not going to hurt the economy as a whole if one guy does that, though. It's based on the fact of equal opportunity. But let's say I like one, let's say, for example, let's say it has nothing to do with race, ethnicity. There's two guys, they're equally qualified, and one of them I just like. He has a better sense of humor. Can I discriminate against people who don't have a good sense of humor? Like, why is that different? People, let's say one of them is better looking than the other. People just, don't tell me, oh, because there's no discrimination against people who are not better looking. There is plenty. There is way more discrimination in the United States against people who are ugly than people who are black. There are way more. It's not even I know this is a joke, and I'm saying it ironically, but it's true. There is so much more discrimination against ugly people than there is against any ethnicity or anything like that. Way more. Think about it. Not gonna lie, being racist is kind of racist. So let's say you literally hire someone because they're better a receptionist. Everyone wants a good-looking receptionist. You want the first person every customer sees when they walk into your hotel to be a good-looking lady. So you hire her for her looks, and you discriminate against all the other people who are not as good-looking. That should be illegal? I don't understand that being a legally enforceable action. I feel like communication will solve that. If you can convince people, that'll be very good. But to do that with a gun seems ridiculous. It seems Very, very immoral in my opinion. I can understand where it's coming from. I can understand that you feel like if there's so many people who are discriminating against a certain sexuality or a certain ethnicity or something like that. You know, I understand emotionally where it's coming from. You want to help them. You want to give them equal opportunity. But I don't think the way is point a gun at people and force them to do it. I think that's a very immoral option. It's a solution, but it's a very immoral solution. The moral solution would be to persuade people not to behave in that way, and it will be for their own benefit. It's not illegal if it's for a specific type of labor like modeling. What if it's a receptionist? A receptionist is a secretary model, basically what a receptionist is. But let's say it's not. Let's say it's just someone I'm going to have in the office. I like having cool people in the office. I don't want to have dorks in my office. Yeah, the person doesn't like nerds. Yeah, nowadays everyone likes nerds. Somebody just doesn't like nerds. He doesn't like the guy came in and he's like, how you doing? The guy has no charisma, so you don't hire him. Should he go to jail for discrimination? For not hiring someone who doesn't have enough charisma to be your IT guy or whatever? Who cares? You can hire whoever the hell you want. It's your money. Why? The government's going to force you to pay your money? It doesn't make sense. It seems really immoral. They should not be judged by the color of skin, rather by the content of their character. That's a good moral premise, but not to force people to not judge people by the color of their skin. To point a gun and say you're not going to judge people by the color of skin, you can judge it. That is like the basic principle of morality. You should be able to judge people however the heck you want to. Now, you might be stupid, but it has to be legal to be dumb. Being stupid has to be legal. They should be, no, legally it should be legal to be racist. For sure it should be legal. If you want to say it's stupid and we're going to educate people not, then fine. Obviously you shouldn't be able to harm someone if you're going and breaking into their house because of their race, or you're going and you're causing them physical pain or violence. So that's the same way it's illegal for anyone else. Being racist should totally be legal though. Why would you make it illegal? It's not going to, first of all, it doesn't solve the problem. If you make it illegal to be racist, you didn't actually make them not racist. Now they're racist and they just resent you. If you actually try to educate them, that will solve the problem. But even on a moral level, everyone should be able to have whatever messed up, horrible ideology that they want. Isn't that the most basic human right? That you can just have whatever views you want to have. Fry be big brain for now. No mega? What's mega? Oh, a mega big brain? You're able to not hire someone because they're black, but you're not allowed to put that down as a reason that you're not hiring them. That's the other thing too, is that people would say, well, no, just didn't feel like he was a right fit for the team. And really, I mean, I guess you can always get away with it. But it's stupid that you're not allowed to write that down. That's so stupid. I really think, again, I'm very anti-racist, and I think we should educate people how dumb it is to be racist. I'm so extreme in that regard, but to point a gun at people's heads and force them not to be racist is the most immoral thing in the world. People can have whatever horrible idea that they want legally. We'll try to persuade them, but not coerce them. Anyway. Alright, say 45. I do want to make the discrimination one. Did I write this down yet? Oh, I have so many things. I still haven't even done the Is Trump a Racist podcast, which I've been promising people. For me to get into actual podcast, I have to be like obsessing over it. Maybe this will be the next one we do. To discriminate based on gender, race, etc. Did we solve armed conflict? No. I have to get one. I have so many things for him. I have to get one. When I get one on my head, like the mass thing, then you just make a good one, or the objective morality. That was actually on my mind personally. Donald Trump. Oh, we're doing the Donald Trump one now. Donald Trump did not ban Muslims entering the United States. Not true. It's not true. Muslims from most countries in the world, Muslims were allowed to. It was only a few countries. And it wasn't because of Islam, it was because of there were threats from those countries. In his opinion. You might want to say he's wrong, but he's not racist. You guys really don't like Trump, huh? The thing for me that is so mind-blowing is today, where you're so able to Google anything. I'm literally more than 90% of things that people say negative about Trump are just factually not true. I'm gonna go through that. But people literally believe, because they heard it on the news, they don't fact check. You can literally Google anything. People think that Trump advised Americans to inject Lysol into their blood. People believe this lie. He never said that. He said doctors are considering a possible treatment for coronavirus of that they will inject some kind of disinfectant into the person that will kill the virus. That is not telling, he didn't say lies, that's not telling anyone to do that. He was very clearly saying that some doctor, some person had mentioned to him in passing that was a medical procedure they were looking into. 90%. The Zoli, again, even looking at that quote of the grab her by the... People just know the phrase, grab her by the pussy. They just know that thing. But they don't understand that the phrase was, they will let you grab her by the pussy. That it was an actual consensual thing. Now, you want to say that's a very grubby way of talking, then fine. But to say that he's a person who doesn't care about consent is ridiculous from that phrase. I'm not trying to say I'm not a huge fan of Trump. I feel like I have some actual very strong criticisms, but 90, it's probably more than 90. It's probably closer to 99% of the criticisms I hear people say about Trump, especially the really big ones, if you would just Google them, which I do when I hear them, I'm like, oh, I want to look into this. I Google it, and it's like, no, he actually did not say that. I'm literally watching him word for word listening to the quote, and it's like, he did not actually say that. It's crazy how much people believe without fact-checking. It's really nuts. Obama was a much more likable, charismatic person than Trump. I'm all for that. I totally agree. I think Obama is a really, really cool dude. I think that's one thing. I think that's one reason that he got elected. And Hillary and Joe Biden, these are so... You have to find another... I keep telling people, you have to find another Obama. What do you... Go with what works. And Bill Clinton was also very charismatic. He had his whole thing of issues, but he was a really cool, charismatic, chilled, saxophone-playing, smooth guy. Where are you going? Hillary is not like that, and neither is Joe Biden. You have to go with what works. It's crazy. You have to find another Obama. It's nuts. Kanye, yeah, exactly. He's very likable. I'm not saying Obama's politics were great. I probably disagree with a lot of Obama's politics. I probably like Trump's politics a lot better than Obama's politics, but charisma, it's not even close. Trump has a certain type of charisma of being a very strong, powerful leader, and people really like that. I think that he has that stronger, a lot better than Obama did. And I think when it came to negotiating with people from other countries and stuff, I think Trump actually does have that presence that he's able to actually challenge people a lot better than sweet, cool guy Obama is. So it's a different type of charisma, but comparing the two of them, even to Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, it's just especially Joe. I think Hillary Clinton has a lot more charisma than Joe Biden. It doesn't say that much, though. It's really, really nuts. I really think the Democratic Party is just who is making the decisions? It must be a Republican. It has to be. It must be the two parties are in cahoots. And the whole point of the Democratic Party is just to keep people happy that there's someone representing them, but there's no chance of that. Look, what is going on there? Seriously. Have you seen the videos of Biden, the creepy videos? Yeah, I saw those. Those were quite disturbing. There were a bunch of videos of Biden being super, super creepy. Trump would have guaranteed one if he responded to coronavirus better. That's. To say that if you were in his position, you definitely would have done better, prove it. I'm not even talking about the creepy things of Biden. I'm just talking about his overall charisma right now. Oh my gosh, fresh kids. Is that the meme? Is that what they're saying on Reddit? Black Lives Matter is gonna help Trump get reelected. Yup, it's true. It's super counterproductive movement, in my opinion. It's true. You're creating more racism. I'm not saying racism is what's going to get Trump elected, but it's not solving racism. It's creating more. People are creating more. It's creating more fear, which is the cause of racism, and more negative associations with people of color, which is also causes more racism. I agree with the general principles that we should be fighting for equality and everything like that, but that is not the way to do it. It doesn't have a good message. The message is that policemen are racist, and that's the reason why people with black skin are being killed disproportionately. If you just look at these statistics, it's just not true, because you're not factoring poverty and crime rates into that at all. Again, it's true that people with black skin are being killed disproportionately compared to their population, but it's not true that the cause for that is police racism. The cause for that is higher crime rates and poverty. And clearly, if you just look at the crime rates, they're actually being killed less than their proportion of the crime rates. Fighting racism causes racism. If you're using force, if you're using aggression, it's going to cause more racism. But if you're using logic and reason and compassion and empathy and understanding and asking that from the person who you're communicating to, and clear communication doesn't cause more racism, it causes a lot less. They have the symptoms wrong, the symptoms right, but not the cause. Yeah, I would say that's true.
On me. Why do I have a shirt?
Go upstairs next, mommy, please.
Am I allowed to do that?
Please go upstairs next, mommy. I'm in the middle of streaming. Please go upstairs. Please go upstairs.
Am I allowed to watch you?
Not now. Please go upstairs.
Okay.
He's running around. What is less than the population but does more than half? Does more than half of what? Nope, it still causes racism. I'm not going to say it's not going to cause a little bit more, but again, if you actually can communicate to people why it's a very unreasonable thing to be racist, they become less racist. I've done it myself. I've taken people who I've heard them have certain racist sort of things. They've definitely made it clear to me that they differentiate between people and race, and I've given them the talk. I've given them the thing. I'm going to make a shorter video on it, less than 5 minute video, how to educate a person not to be racist. And it's basically just understanding the DNA, the amount that actually contributes to the color of the skin does not affect people's behavior whatsoever. If you want to say culture does, great, but culture is not directly tied to race. And if it is, it shouldn't be. It's a very simple talk you can give to people, and I've really talked to people, and they're like, yeah, you're right, that's a really stupid way of looking at things. Also, making people understand their implicit biases. If a person sees someone of a particular race, of a minority, do something scary, which scares them, they have a natural instinct to associate that with the entire race. You have to make people aware that they're doing that, and you realize how stupid that is, because the problem with that person is not that they're black. The problem is that that particular individual was an immoral person, was a dangerous person, was a mentally ill person. It has nothing to do with his skin color. It has to do with a lot of other things. So instead of being afraid now of people with black skin, you should be afraid of people who are exhibiting antisocial behavior. And that won't apply to black people at all. It'll apply equally to every race. You're actually being much smarter by making your fears encompass what is actually causing the problem, not something which is just an association. It's very easy to talk people out of it. one of the leaders of the KKK. There was this famous guy, I forget his name, but there's this guy, you can look up on YouTube. It's like, why I, as a black man, spent time with the KKK. I forget his name. I'm sure you guys could tell me. But there was this guy who used to talk to a lot of people in the KKK, and they had this ideology of white supremacy. It was like this thing that they really believe. It is an ideology. There is something to it. Now, I disagree with it, but there's something to it. And he would talk to them, and he would also show them how normal, basically, someone with black skin can be. And he reasoned them out of it. What's his name again? You'll check it after the video. It's on YouTube. Black people make 43% of the crime. When it comes to violent crime, it's almost 50%, 43. But it's only 13% of the population. So cops aren't racist. They just take more caution with them. Even without more caution, they're actually, if you just think of the amount, because it's only, if they're responsible for, upwards of 40% of violent crime in the United States, and they're only 30% of the people are being killed, they're actually being killed disproportionately lower than the amount that they're responsible for. And again, most of this crime, this is not a racist thing. Oh, they're only counting, they're only worried about black crime. They're not even documenting white crime. It's not true, because most of the crime that they're documenting is black on black crime. Don't tell me that someone who's racist will care more when a black person kills a black person than when a white person kills a white person. That's ridiculous. Daryl Davis, thank you, that's his name. That's the name of the guy who used to hang out at KKK rallies, the guy with black skin. Anyway. If you treat a people like criminals, they will be. If you drag an entire nation of people in chains on boats and make them slaves for 100 years or whatever it was, and then you free them and you just don't give them anything and you don't help them lift themselves out of poverty and you just let them be to their own devices, yeah, that population is more likely to be more prone to crime. I mean, if you want to blame that, that's great. Don't blame police officers in 2020. That's not there is something to look at, and there is solutions. You have to help these communities get out of poverty. You have to help them get better education. There's a lot of things you can really do, but pointing your fingers at police officers is not the right solution. The data just, if the data really supported that, then it would be the right solution, but the data not only does not support it, it very, very much supports the opposite. If you want to say in general we need police reform and more accountability, I'm all for that. But that is, again, has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. It shouldn't, because that has nothing to do with the reason why more people with black skin are being killed by police than the representation of the population. It's not why. There's nothing to do, if you want to say all lives matter and that's why we need police reform, that would be great. But it has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. If you want to say there's problems in the police system and there needs to be more accountability, listen, every police officer has a body cam. I'm 100% for that. There should be, instead of internal affairs investigating incidents with police officers, there should be a separate office, like the DA should be in charge of that. I'm totally for that. I'm totally for that. But not that you have, but just you need more training for, people are saying you need more training for police officers in terms of like how to not be racist. It's crazy. It's just that's not going to solve any of the problem. I'm totally for police reform. I think defund the police is ridiculous. I think you need more funding. You need to give them more training. Pay police officers more so you'll end up having better quality of individuals. You'll actually have much more selection in terms of who you're hiring as a police. You don't have to hire someone. There should be maybe more investigations to their past, more mental health training, not only a mental health evaluation before they go on the job, but while they have that. I'm all for these things, but these things are all expensive, and it should definitely be fund the police more, not less. The idea of defund the police, though, there is one idea which I agree with, is instead of trying to look at solving crime and the ways of increased police, more and more police, your first instinct before you do that should be, let's try to see why the crime is happening and focus there. And that would be solving poverty, making better education. Like that would be more important than just throwing more and more police. I think that mindset, I definitely agree with that part of defund the police means instead of adding a lot more more police officers and solving crime that way, try to educate people, try to give people more opportunities so they won't be driven to crime in the first place. Like, of course I'm for that. But again, within Black Lives Matter, there are a lot of messages here and there which are very, very good messages. But the main ones, if you look on the website, that the state is sanctioning killing black people, it's just not true. It's just not in the facts. Are people born into racism? Again, there are racist ideologies. There's plenty of racist people, and if a person is exposed to them and is born in that family, they never challenge their own presumptions, so it's very likely that they will be a racist themselves because they just are influenced by their surroundings. But again, the answer to that is also education. If you actually educate people, say, where do your ideas actually come from? Here's the reason why being racist is really stupid. That's the way you educate people, not by pointing guns at their heads. When is the political figure tier list going to come out? I should make a tier list for all... I think all the Democratic candidates this past time were like an F tier. I'll put Andrew Yang in like B. I think he was pretty decent, actually. I don't know if he's what they need right now. Maybe he is. I feel like Andrew Yang has such a better chance to beat Trump than freaking Joe Biden. Andrew Yang's a pretty charismatic person, too. He's a little cringy sometimes. I'm gonna give $1,000 to all the people who call. He had a few cringe moments, but it's not nearly as bad as Joe. Miss Bernie also. Bernie's not gonna do it. I'm happy Bernie did not get nominated. It's not. First of all, his politics I like the least. Of all the candidates, forget his personality, the actual politics I like the least. I really, really think Bernie is the opposite direction of progress. That's just me personally. I think for him to try to apply what's going on in Sweden and homogenous countries and apply it to America is just nuts. It's nuts, as Bernie would say. He's good at promoting his ideas, but awful president. What about Andrew Yang being a vice president, though? That would be great. Andrew Yang for vice president. Oh my God. See, you're right. I don't think you should. Because I feel like you kind of need someone with a little bit more, more intimidating than Andrew Yang. He's a very non-intimidating guy. He's very nice. I'd love to grab a drink with him. I don't drink anymore, but yeah, I mean, that seems like really cool. But how about Vice President Andrew Yang? Oh my, I'm so for that. 2020, what's the next one? 2024? 2024. We have to find a president now. Andrew Yang needs to be a vice president. I'm sorry, no offense to him. I don't know if you're the right personality. I think you need someone a little bit tougher. Andrew Yang goes on the conservative networks too and talks to them. That's that's respect. If you're a Democratic president candidate and you're going and talking to Ben Shapiro, that is you gain so many points with me. Because also you have to try to, if your ideas are good enough, they will speak for themselves. And I think, I didn't watch that entire interview. I watched part of it. That's great. New York called dibs on Yang. Is he running for governor or something now? Anyway. Alright, I'm going. Have a nice day, guys. What day's today? Today's Wednesday. We'll do a podcast tomorrow night about something. If not, we'll just do a chatting session. These are fun. It's 9 o'clock. Have a good night, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.